fall tack.
Det behöver vi inte köpa.
Nej.
So yes, you can see probably this is the main work of this exhibition. In any case, it's a bit how it started. If you saw the video, that is from my residency in Finland. I was there in September. So pretty much all of these works are from September and October. But as you can see, I was invited to this residency, and in the studio that they gave me, there was this Loom. Of course, I went there thinking like, oh, I'm going to work with electronics and sound and textile as I usually do. But then I was a bit tired to be in front of the computer because I spent my time there. And instead I was doing one of the things that I love the most, and maybe one of the reasons why I'm here in Sweden is like just being in the forest. So when I was there, I was just thinking and watching the forest. When I went there, it was kind of warm still. So when I was walking around, I noticed this type of lichen. It's called Usnea. And so that was so interesting because it had sort of fiber qualities, no? And I wondered if I could first create fibers from it, that's the first one that I did. All of the words, except that one, are called Sincretos, which is a sort of Spanish way of saying like an object that is syncretic. As I was saying before, no, the name of the exhibition is called, it's Symbios or Symbiosis in English, also in Spanish, Symbiosis. But I thought of the word as one node and this sort of network of meaning. So that's why I find it difficult to classify the show as part of conceptual art. Because it's not about the one concept, it's more about the interrelation and the indefinition of concepts. I mean, really, it goes beyond. So, of course, the symbiotic organism here is the lichen, which is part fungus and part algae. You can actually see, I will show you later how it's, when I make it wet, it changes color immediately, and you can see easily its algae properties. When I was weaving, when I was interacting with this material, I realized that it could actually live quite long if the conditions permitted it. This type of lichen is found in clean air forests and clean and cold forests. So if these conditions change, they became really, they would stop growing in that area. Actually, around here in Stockholm, like in Gnesta and maybe around Flemingsberg, they have started growing again. But for a while they disappeared. So in that sense, they worked as a sensor of clean air. Thinking about this idea of sensors, I decided to turn them into a tactile sensor as well. The method is very similar to the ones that I've used in my previous works with interactive textiles that I use as textile controllers for sound performance or sound sculptures. But in this case, I take advantage of the properties of the lichen, which is once it becomes humid, it becomes conductive. So actually, it's not just the threads that are the sensor, but the lichen itself when it's humid. If it's dry, then it doesn't really work like that. keeping them alive and not damaging them when making them into textiles, I use this Peruvian technique, actually. If you've seen that it's common to find this technique in textiles made for tourists, in which they use big chunks of cotton, and the artisans place them in such a way that you don't really, each of the strands is really thick, and you can make they make landscapes or Andean scenes out of this. So I realized that this technique was really good for not damaging the lichens. But you can see in here that you can actually make really thin threads with that. And then you can. Hey, welcome. I'm giving that an intro. And then, actually depends on how humid or dry they are. They can be compressed or not. So, for example, for doing these really thin threads, they were really wet, and I could just squash them. But for making these thicker ones, they were a bit drier, and then they can be kind of more chunky and fluffy, let's say. So this one is almost 3 months old, and it's surviving. This is also like 2 months and a half, I'm still living, and this is just 1 month, and they're still alive, so the system seems to be working. Now, this idea also came from me thinking about art and what are artworks for within the market that they are usually placed at nowadays, no? Actually, while I was in the residency, I was checking out these bunkers for the rich. And yes, actually, this is a thing now. You can buy one starting from $5 million.
Yeah.
And so, yes, some people are preparing for the end, no? And of course, you can live in these bunkers with the most important things, starting with very high quality of products, and like you would have a place where to store your most valuable things. That is your wine collection, a nice room for your kids, and of course a pool with some plants, ornamental plants, of course. So they were chosen out of which one is the prettiest one, and then your art collection, valuable things. So then I was thinking, okay, if art is one of these things that is deemed so important, maybe going intentionally in the light of these strange activists, the oil, no oil, the UK ones that keep on intervening in art because they're like, oh, art can be more valuable than life. Well, I wasn't that kind of thing. So I thought, what if I do artworks whose value would depend on them being kept alive? And if you keep them alive, actually you would be preserving a species that is threatened by climate change. So yes, I came with these words. So actually I need to put some energy in preserving them, which also poses some questions in what relates to preservation issues within art, no? Because how do you preserve them? You need certain temperature, it can't be that hot. It's curious with these lichens because if you dry them in a cold environment, they still keep the shape, but they will lose the color. But they will also turn really brittle. But if it's too wet and too warm, they disintegrate and turn to this mushy paste, basically. So the whole work will disappear if the conditions are not right. So again, as I was saying, I did this sort of parallel in between the symbiotic relation in between organisms and syncretism, which is this relation in between cultures. No, when two cultures intermix and then the stylistic properties all mix. So all of these works are syncretic. They have components from, say, Andean tradition, but also from a Swedish tradition. As you can see, there's these references to these Falun style houses, and I used a Falun rod. And that's actually a puzzle, so you can just put it, in parts. Each one of the pieces, you can see, you can just separate it and put it together again. I thought it was quite interesting, this paint, because it penetrates. So it's a very interesting technology from the 1700s from here, from Sweden. So this idea of working together is something I rescued from that paint as well.